Can you tell me how the Bauhaus College came down here to East Tilbury?
We decided that in this year's colleague we want to deal with Bata, and we checked which sites are interesting in the world, and East Tilbury is one of the interesting locations for the Bata factory site, and we have a second one in Bata Naga in Calcutta.
So coming here to this actual museum, what are you learning here? What have been the benefits actually coming into this museum?
I think the museum is really a fantastic place, because it has all the documents and evidence of how the life was at Bata. I think it's one thing to look at the buildings and to understand how they are architecturally, but to understand what it means or has meant to work for Bata and to live in the Bata village is quite special. And I think that's here in this Reminiscence Center you can really get a glimpse of that, and I hope our students can get more and more information through the research here.
Because it is as well, apart from the architecture, a fascinating social experiment.
It is quite utopian, and it's quite amazing that the system got really implemented, that people not only work in a factory, that they also live here and share their leisure time together, and that's all coordinated or orchestrated by one company, and done with such a benefit to the workers on such a high level that they have recreation facilities and high quality housing of the time. So it's quite special.
What do they do with the material that they have?
We focus on 2-3 different forms of documentation. One is video interviews. So we try also in India to video document the workers. Also here, we do really surveys of the urban setup, and we do documentation of the archive material we can find. The result will be an exhibition trying to document Bata at large, and then our 2 case studies with the interviews and the material.
What are you learning from being here at Bata?
We just arrived, so the experience is just starting, but it is very interesting because Bata built cities all around the world, and it's not that well known, it's not that well written in the history of architecture and urban planning, and suddenly we are realizing, as I came to the Bauhaus College, I suddenly got in touch with a reality that I personally never heard of, and as far as I know, most of my colleagues as well. And suddenly we are realizing that there was a man in the 1930s who had a vision that some might criticize or not, and he decided to create a city according to his vision and exported it. So what we call today globalization existed in the 1930s, which is very interesting on one hand. On the other hand, the system in itself, that it's also very criticized and by ones and not by others. It was a very complex system that involved all areas of production, since the production in itself, urban planning, communication strategies, and the owning of all kinds of factories. And it's a very complex and big world, and it's very interesting to study not just the economic part of it, as well as the urban planning.
So, even though you come from an architectural point of view, there's a political argument about it, isn't there?
Political, economical, social, how you form people. For example, Thomas Bata has this vision. He praised the industrial world, the potentialities of industry, and he thought that the man of his time should follow it and should create a new society. So for him, his cities and his social system, he created a lot of rules and a lot of habits that were supposed to shape the modern man. And some people may say that the workers were being like brainwashed, but the truth is that people here were free to leave. The truth is that they were given, most of these people came from rural areas, and most of the Bata cities came from rural areas, not all of them, but most of them. And so we can imagine what it was in the 1930s for a rural man to suddenly come across with a settlement who had cinema, shops, hotel, swimming pools, events every night, every weekend. It must have been very attractive. So like we say, we can criticize it in the terms of the man had a vision and he wanted to shape a society, and obviously that's imposing. But on the other hand, he was giving people an opportunity to be educated, to get in touch with a new world that those people didn't know. So there is always two sides of the story, and it's very interesting and very complex.
So we're looking at something that occurred in the early to mid 20th century. Here we are in 2011. As a student in 2011, will we ever see the like of Bata again?
No, never. Like you say, there is a very political and economic part of it. We always say, as architects, we always think that we can change the world or shape the world. That is not true. The world is shaped by politicians and money. It has always been, and it will always be. And this proves it, because while we lived in a economic system that allowed the company to be profitable enough to construct houses and all kinds of facilities for the workers, they maintain itself, and they would give houses to the workers. They would have movies and cinemas and all that. And suddenly the economy changed, and all these companies, all the production start to run into third world countries, or in development, as we call it, countries where people have no rights whatsoever. They work in miserable conditions. And so we might ask, yes, we have to evolve, and that system was not right, but we must ask ourselves, well, is this okay? Because we are in Europe and we are fine. We have great social system, we have lots of rights, but there are people in Bangladesh and in Singapore that are not fine, and they are doing our cell phones, our shoes. So I don't think it will happen again, but I think we should use the examples of the past to reflect of the mistakes, or maybe the things that could be changed, but also the things that should be taken as a good experience and a positive thing for the future.
Well, smart.
Cheese! I'll do another one now again. This way.
Cheese.